Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, primary push from progressives. Several Democratic incumbents will have to pack up their offices at the Roundhouse, and challengers in two big money DA races fall short. Plus,
the United States needs to move forward, take responsibility, give recognition to all of these families across America.
U.S. Senator Ben Ray Lujan joins the show to discuss the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act and what expanding it could mean for impacted families in our state. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm senior producer Lou DeVizio. Federal funding under the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, known as RECA, is set to end next week, with House Republican leadership holding the hammer over its future. Democratic U.S. Senator Ben Ray Lujan has advocated for RECA for years, pushing for it to not only continue, but to expand to include New Mexico, several other states, and the Navajo Nation. We've documented the deadly health problems that people who've lived near the Trinity site have experienced over generations. Later in today's show, Source New Mexico reporter Daniel Prokop asks Senator Lujan why New Mexico families deserve compensation too. Now, earlier this spring, the Santa Fe Film Festival awarded Doug Fine Best New Mexico Documentary for his film, American Hemp Farmer. In the second half of our program, the paper's Andy Lyman speaks with Fine about his project and its message that large-scale hemp production could help combat climate change. But first, we turn our attention to the results of this week's primary election. Two high-profile, expensive district attorney races were decided Tuesday, with both incumbents coming out on top. In the second judicial district race in Bernalillo County, Sam Bregman held off former U.S. Attorney Damon Martinez, winning 56% of the vote. Bregman had said he wouldn't seek the seat after Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham appointed him last year. Then he changed his mind. In Judicial District 1, covering Santa Fe, Los Alamos, and Rio Arriba counties, Mary Carmack Altwies locked in a second term, beating out former DA Marco Serna by more than 6,000 votes. It was a rough night for incumbent Gerald Byers in the District 3 DA's race for Doña Ana County. Byers finished last in a field of four candidates, with Fernando Macias claiming the narrow victory by less than 100 votes, according to the Secretary of State's office. Now, as for the state legislature, several entrenched Democrats will be on their way out come January. State Senator Bill O'Neill's decade-long tenure serving District 13 will come to an end after falling to challenger Debbie O'Malley. State Senator Daniel Ivey Soto, whose bid for a fourth term in District 15 was mired by sexual harassment and assault allegations, lost in an 80 to 20% landslide to Heather Bergmans. Now, while Tuesday's results won't mean much when it comes to the balance of power in the Roundhouse, they do indicate what appears to be a continued ideological shift within the Democratic Party. To get a grasp of why and what it could mean for the governor's policy agenda, I sit down with Dr. Timothy Krebs, chair of UNM's Political Science Department. Dr. Krebs, thanks so much for being here on New Mexico in Focus.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I want to get to quite a few races from across the state this past week, starting with two of the most expensive for district attorney in the Santa Fe area and in Bernalillo County. Did you see any similarities between those two races, between Mary Carmack Altwies and Sam Bregman in the second district? And were either of those candidates vulnerable at all? And what went wrong for those challengers?
Well, I think, in the Bernalillo case, it was a question of facing an incumbent who is perceived as strong on the issue of crime and public safety, and he was able to carry that message forward in a way. He had plenty of money to advertise on TV, and I think it was just an uphill climb from the beginning for Damon Martinez in that particular race. In the Santa Fe contest, it was an incumbent against challengers, controversial issue around Alec Baldwin and the Rust movie set incident. And so, again, you've got to be able to take that on, and it seems like this district attorney has been moving forward on that particular case, and so she was able to eke out the win.
Okay. Now in District 3 down in Las Cruces, that was another interesting one. Incumbent Gerald Byers, he finished dead last in a field of four. Did voters take issue, in your mind, to two high-profile deadly police shootings that happened over this past year, or was there some other issue that really cost him that re-election bid?
I mean, I think it was that issue. That was a very surprising one, where you have an incumbent who basically is not even a center part of this particular race, with 8% of the vote. He really got smoked in that in that re-election battle. So I think it was those kinds of issues. I think there was some question about disarray in his office, and then of course issues around homelessness and border security, et cetera. All of these things, I think, combined, caused him to be weak in the eyes of the voters, and his opponents were quite strong. He had strong challengers that emerged against him, and so he was clearly vulnerable on a number of fronts, and I think that helps to explain that particular race.
Okay. Now, while putting these races into context a bit, I want to ask you a little bit more about the role of a district attorney and how that's changed. In Bregman's case in Bernalillo County, he was a driving force behind the proposed change to the pretrial detention system. So how has this role changed, especially in Bernalillo County, where so much of the conversation around crime is centered?
I don't know that the role has changed per se in any of these cases. The context might change, and so it requires district attorneys to think carefully about the kinds of initiatives that they're putting forth. I mean, ultimately their job is to provide justice for the community and to prosecute crimes. And so I don't think the role itself has changed, but certainly the context is different from one election cycle to the next. And so a candidate, an incumbent who is seen as moving on the things that are top of mind for voters, is usually going to have an advantage. And so that's what I think is happening in these particular places. I don't think the top issue is pretrial detention. The top issue is how can we more effectively fight crime in Bernalillo County. And so Bregman did a good job of putting forth that message, and he's taken some important steps as DA to deal with that issue. So it was going to be a tough battle, I think, for Martinez all along. Has district attorneys across the board, have they been pushed into the political spotlight a bit more because of these crime conversations? And how does that affect how voters see them and how they campaign also? Well, it is one of those offices that's in some ways an administrative one, like county clerk and so forth. It's sort of there's an administration of it, but it's also one because of the nature of the work that they're doing, where they get drawn into political conflicts and into political discussions. And so, district attorneys have always had to navigate sort of difficult political waters as they do their jobs. It's a really important role. It's a high-profile role. It's one that people know about, in contrast to some of those other administrative offices. And so it really puts them on the hot seat with regards to these big issues, and crime is always one.
Okay, let's move on now to the state legislature. Progressive Democrats, they're celebrating Tuesday night as a collective win. Challengers knocked off several longtime legislators, thinking of Debbie O'Malley unseating Senator Bill O'Neill in District 13, Michelle Abeyta taking down Harry Garcia in the House in District 69, Heather Bergmans, she routed Daniel Ivey Soto, the senator in District 15. Did any of those results surprise you, either individually or collectively? Ivey Soto is one that's sort of sticks out. He was scandalized, and it's one of the things that when incumbents lose, it's often the case that they've been involved in some kind of high-profile scandal. In each of these cases, I think you've got the issue of women running for office. You had a lot of women voters this time around. They were able to put the spotlight on a number of key issues around reproductive choice, family and medical leave issues, and then of course the issues around former Senator Ivey Soto was around sexual harassment charges and so forth. So they did a good job of messaging in District 13. That district has changed a lot, but you had in Debbie O'Malley, you had a candidate who had been a Bernalillo County commissioner, so she had a lot of political experience going into that race. And so it turned out to be a really close one, about a 4-point
lead for her, a 4-point win for her. That's a surprise. To beat an incumbent at any time is surprising. The other races, I think it shows this movement, at least on the Democratic side, to more progressive kind of perspective among the folks who are going to be serving in the state legislature.
Do you see this as a growing movement that starting really, I mean, it could be back farther even, but 2020, a lot of progressive wins, 2024 now. Do you see this as a trend that could continue in the state legislature?
I think it's very possible. The issue of party polarization has come down to the state level all across the country, and it's reflective of the dynamics of primary elections themselves. This is a closed primary state, so the people who are voting in the party primaries tend to be the most interested voters. The most interested voters are also the most sort of ideologically pure voters. And so that gives an advantage to ideologically pure candidates on both the left and the right. And so when you've got a kind of low turnout situation, when we had 22% this time around, it was a little bit lower than the last in 2022. When you have that situation, the people who are going to be turning out to vote are going to be the ones who are most interested, the ones who are most ideologically extreme, if you will. That advantages those kinds of candidates. So it really gives an incentive for these candidates and for the parties to put forth these candidates. And so you can expect that the two parties are going to move apart from each other down the road unless something changes with respect to how we do primaries. Where we can encourage more moderate voices to run for office and to come out and vote. And so, yeah, I would expect it to continue. In New Mexico, it's by and large a blue state. I mean, there are no Republican statewide office holders at the moment. And so, yeah, you would expect that trend to continue.
We'll get to Republicans in a minute. I want to stay on this progressive wing conversation just for a minute. What does that do for policy, particularly crime, and the governor's agenda pushing some of these harder on crime measures in the regular session this past January, now coming up in July, before this turnover happens with more progressives? Is this her last chance to get some of those bills passed?
It could be. It could be, but crime has been one of those issues that Democrats and Republicans, even liberal Democrats, have over time at least been sort of equally hard on, and or tough on the issue of crime. And so we'll see once these office holders are sworn in and when they start hearing from their constituents about the issue, what positions they're going to take. But I think it could be important this summer for the governor in terms of her crime initiatives.
Okay. What about a couple other policy measures here? Paid family leave, you mentioned that earlier. Another one that comes to mind that failed this past session was the Oil and Gas Reform Act. Is there more hope that for progressives and for the farther left Democrats that these issues could pass in the next session, perhaps?
It's possible. I mean, that's certainly the hope of progressives, that bringing these new voices into the party, these new perspectives, especially in cases where the outgoing office holder was more conservative. Yeah, I mean, in those cases, it's gonna make a difference. But whether the wave has been sort of big enough at this time to create real policy change in the next session, that remains to be seen.
Okay. Now, what did stand out for you in the Republican primaries this time around? Any individual races? Any notable ideological shifts?
I don't think so. I mean, there's sort of on the Republican side, they've got their own sort of internal battle taking place between the people who are furthest to the right, the people who are most sort of pro-Trump, and then others who are a bit more traditional in terms of their Republican conservative ideology. And so that's the major fault line within the Republican ranks, and we see it play out in these primary elections, and in cases where Republicans are in safe districts, obviously they're going to hold on to those. but they're likely to be more extreme as well. So we can expect a legislative session that perhaps is even more polarized going forward.
Now, looking ahead to November, did you see anything this past week that would indicate a potential shakeup? I realize that both chambers are probably going to stay blue, but any other shifts that you see as far as the party makeup in either chamber?
No, I think it's going to remain roughly the same, and I think there's going to be an ideological tilt on the Democratic side to the left a little bit, and on the Republican side to the sort of pro-Trump forces. Republicans are more, they're more steadfast in holding on to their views as conservatives. I mean, they're really they're a much more sort of unified party on that front. The Democrats are a bit more of a, in general, I won't say it's a dysfunctional sort of family, but they have a lot of fights internally, and there are more facets of the sort of around ideological discussions. There are more dimensions to that. Whereas on the Republican side, they tend to be in lockstep more with their leaders, and certainly in this case, it's with former President Trump.
Okay. Now, with the influx of progressive voices, how will that impact the relationship between those two sides? You say that the Republicans are more in lockstep. We have a Democratic Party that might have a little bit of infighting. How, when we split it clearly on party lines, how will they work together? Do you see that working?
It's going to make it, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. I mean, to the extent that you have more progressive Democrats serving in the House and in the Senate, it's going to make it more difficult for people to compromise on issues. I mean, historically, Democrats in New Mexico have included a number of conservative Democrats, especially from the southern part of the state. And that helped to bridge the divide between the two parties historically. So as the Democrats move a little bit more to the left, to continue this movement that we've seen since 2020, as that continues to happen, it's going to make it's probably going to make it more challenging for them to sort of reach out and build coalitions and compromise on key issues. The Democrats will still have a majority in both chambers. They're still going to control the governor's office. And so, it could be the case that they don't need Republican votes to get their agenda through. In which case, then they're running the table, so to speak, and can get their agenda passed. But it's certainly, in terms of things that have bipartisan support among the voters, among the people of New Mexico, could complicate that a little bit.
Okay. We'll watch for that. We'll be watching all the changes coming from the Roundhouse in the next few months. Now, I hesitate to venture into the presidential race. It's a race that's burnt out a lot of people already. But there were some interesting developments. Specifically, 10% of Democratic voters handing in uncommitted ballots rather than voting for Joe Biden. 3% of Republicans voted uncommitted, staying on the fence. We know that New Mexico isn't going to turn red for 2024, but does that signal some vulnerability for Biden nationally?
Maybe. I mean, maybe. It's large. It remains to be seen, of course, but it's largely a binary choice between Biden and Trump. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be on the ballot in some places, and so that's going to complicate things. But the 10% in New Mexico, it's not going to be an issue. I think at the end of the day, those 10% will come back to vote for Biden or come back to the Democratic fold. But 10% in New Mexico is really interesting in light of the fact that in Michigan there was 13% uncommitted. And Michigan has the largest Arab American population of any state in the country. And so that is an interesting, that 10% in New Mexico were uncommitted, that close to sort of Michigan's number. That's an interesting development. But I think at the end of the day, I think those folks are going to come back again to support President Biden against President Trump.
Okay. Dr. Krebs, thanks so much for joining me.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Every acre of regeneratively cultivated hemp sequesters tons of carbon. So if you have a rooftop space in a city or just a patch that you can drip irrigate and plant hemp on, of course, at this stage you have to get a permit even for a home subsistence crop, but hopefully, follow the regulations, but hopefully those type of things are going away. Everybody can actually play a concrete role, and your own food will be healthier.
That interview with Doug Fine will air in about 20 minutes. In March, the U.S. Senate voted 69-30 to expand and continue funding the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. The proposed expansion would help cover many other U.S. states and territories, including New Mexico and the people whose families have lived near the Trinity site for generations. That community has been a major catalyst in Senator Ben Ray Lujan's push to extend and expand the act. But it's not up to him or the Senate alone. House leaders have gone back and forth on the measure and had yet to bring the bill responsible for funding the program to a vote as of this recording on Thursday. Meanwhile, the funding being used for RECA right now is scheduled to sunset on Monday. In what might potentially be the final hours of RECA, Senator Lujan had a moment to speak to Source New Mexico reporter Danielle Prokop about the program and tells us why he's fighting for the House to revive RECA.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Senator Lujan.
It's good to be with you as well, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
I want to bring us right into it today. Things are clearly fluid on RECA on Capitol Hill, but the fund is set to expire this week. Can you tell me what's happening?
Well, right now, I'm very proud that the United States Senate has passed the amendments to expand RECA not once but twice, with a historic 61 vote, only to be followed with 69 members, Democratic and Republican members, voting to expand RECA. Both those initiatives passed the Senate, while one of those was a standalone bill, and it currently sits in the U.S. House of Representatives. The program is scheduled to expire June 7th, so sometime between June 7th and Monday, June 10th, is when the date sunsets on this particular program. There have been several of us that have been advocating for the use of tools to, one, expand the program by passing the standalone legislation, which would also extend the date. And number two, if the legislation to expand RECA is not brought to the floor before it sunsets, then pass legislation that would expand the program as well. And I'm engaging in more and more conversations. Senator Hawley is engaging in conversations. I've been proud to be working with leaders like Senator Crapo of Idaho, as well as Senator Heinrich of New Mexico as well. And one way or another, we will fight to expand this program or fight to expand it. And if we do this correctly, we'll be able to yield both.
Wonderful, thank you. And this brings us right into last week. House Republican leadership flip-flopped on RECA, first saying they would not support yours and Senator Hawley's bill, but then later walked back that vote to extend the current program for 2 years. Can you explain for people who aren't watching this closely why advocates are calling that a victory?
Well, number one, I'm concerned of the fact that the House of Representatives has yet to hold a standalone vote on expanding RECA, especially when it received 69 votes in the United States Senate with a strong bipartisan vote, the strongest it's ever had in the United States Senate, number one. Number two, we're seeing momentum every day, and I believe that we would see that same momentum repeated on the House floor if only it was given an opportunity to be voted on. The other concern that many of us had is when the senator from Utah worked to offer some amendments, his amendments would have, number one, left out an expansion with uranium mine workers, which would not have been included, and would have left out most of the country that the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act includes, which is all of New Mexico, including Missouri, and other states as well. Expanding this for an additional 2 years, the way that it was being promoted by the senator from Utah, raised concerns. Therefore, the senator from Missouri objected to that as well. But nonetheless, we are all working, my office included, working with advocates to see what must be done so that we can all work together and work together to be able to protect and expand RECA.
And so the leaving behind of the standalone vote, has there been any guarantees from Republican leadership that they will bring your bill and Senator Hawley's bill to the floor in the House?
Well, I very much appreciate that while the senator from Kentucky, the Republican leader, Mr. McConnell, voted against the provision when we were fighting to include it in the National Defense Authorization Act. I did see the support from Leader McConnell when this was a standalone bill in the Senate, and we earned his vote as well. That shows Republican leadership support in the Senate. I'm very concerned still about where things stand in the U.S. House of Representatives, namely because the National Defense Authorization Act was kept out of a negotiated National Defense Authorization Act, the RICA was, when it should have been included there and should have gone to the president at that point. Most observers, including myself, will point to Republican leadership that were responsible for the removal of that package. Well, now I'm very proud that we not only have the support of Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate, as well as support from the President of the United States and Joe Biden.
But not in the House.
I've not seen the support of Speaker Johnson yet. I'm very proud that we do have the support of Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader of the U.S. House of Representatives. And I'm confident that if this bill was brought to the floor, that we would be able to earn every Democratic vote, therefore only needing a handful of Republican colleagues. And many of them have already been voicing and showing support for this package.
So I'm going to move into the story of downwinders here. People across the country are encountering downwinders and this legacy of nuclear contamination for the first time. It's really come to the fore in the public consciousness. For many New Mexicans, this story spans generations. I want to bring it a little bit back to your story. You fought for RICA for a long time. What is your personal connection to this issue?
Well, I've had the honor of learning about the injustices and challenges that families have been faced with from families in New Mexico. Leaders like Tina Cordova or Phil Harrison and so many others whose families have been fighting this for decades, and they continue themselves to fight the harms that were created from being exposed. In the case of Tularosa, New Mexico, families like Tina Cordova's, those families were never warned about the first atmospheric test in the country. And it was in a little bitty community in New Mexico, the Trinity test site, where the US government, as a matter of fact, lied to these families years later and said that it was simply a munition drop, not that it was a nuclear atmospheric test. Kids thought that it was snowing. They were playing in the ash. Families started to get cancer and chronic ailments at record paces, and we've continued to see that for decades. I learned from them why it was important to fight for all of these initiatives. At the same time, my father, who would not benefit from the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, who passed away 12 years ago, he had his own cancer fight. My dad was not a smoker, but my dad sadly was exposed to bad things that caused that cancer while he was at the national labs as an ironworker, as a welder. And I saw the fight that my mom and he faced every day. And I saw firsthand what families go through. So that experience with mom and dad, and my dad's fight as well, whose life was taken sooner than it ever should have, coupled with what I learned from people and leaders like Phil and Tina, taught me the importance of fighting for this. And I made this commitment that as long as I had the honor of serving in the House and in the Senate, or in whatever form or fashion, that I would fight to correct this wrong. And this is an injustice that was created by the United States of America, and the United States needs to settle up and help these families to the maximum extent that they will be able to, because while no one will be made whole, Danielle, I believe the federal government should be helping make these families as whole as possible.
I want to thank you for sharing that. You have been a long and steady advocate for expanding RICA since your time in the House and again in the Senate. You also support the work of the national laboratories, including plutonium pit production at Los Alamos. How do you square these things?
Well, one, when there was a responsibility that the United States had for national security purposes, early on, there was a lack of protection for families, whether it was uranium mine workers who sometimes were working in corridors where they would flood them out to try to keep the particulate of the uranium ore down. which would only make people more sick. There was no protective gear, things of that nature. There was no warning to families around the downwind of nuclear testing as well. And that was a liability created by the federal government. And I believe that those families need to be made whole, just as some families receive benefits when the legislation was originally created in 1990 and amended in 2000. I work every day around Los Alamos National Laboratory to ensure that we have more protections for workers and for families. I fight every day for the protection of a program that the Department of Labor administers to help families there get health care and benefits if they get sick as well. And I raise this every time I get a chance. So the more that we can do to expand the mission at Los Alamos National Laboratory with supercomputing, with work in spaces like climate awareness, biosciences and things of that nature is something that I advocate for, while we also have to fight to expand these protections for RICA. I would also remind everyone that a big part of the work that is being done at Los Alamos National Laboratory, as well as Sandia and Lawrence Livermore, is in the area to be able to advocate for more efforts across the world to be able to help deter, as opposed to just seeing what could happen if someone like Russia or someone else would make a horrible decision. And so I very much appreciate the training that comes out of Los Alamos and the expertise that is shared around the world, and providing protection to those employees and those workers and those families in the same way that we need to bring justice to these families that were exposed to nuclear fallout and downwind of testing.
I'm going to bring us back here while we just have a few minutes left. Senator, what can New Mexicans expect if Congress kills RICA?
One, I will fight with everything that I have to ensure that RICA does not expire. While the date sunsets this weekend, I've been assured that there's still a little bit of time for us to continue to work to get the program extended, while I and others are working to get the program expanded. If this program sunsets and does not return, families will not be able to apply for new programs that currently qualify, but we'll be able to have a program that still provides support to those that have. That's not good enough for me. So I and others are committed to do everything that we can to ensure that this program is going to be in place for the families that need it most.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
The push to expand the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act has been building for decades. In 2021, federal lawmakers set aside talks of expansion, saying growing the pool of eligible recipients to include New Mexico and other states would cost too much money. That's the same argument we're hearing this week from House Republicans, again balking at the program's price tag. In his appeal to the Senate before their vote this year, and in his interview with Danielle, Senator Lujan cited the efforts and struggles of Tina Cordova. She's represented families who live downwind of the Trinity test site, who, like her, have seen their families fight through horrific battles with cancer over generations. Correspondent Russell Contreras has kept in touch with Cordova over the years here on New Mexico in Focus. In a 2021 interview, Cordova explains the roadblocks she's had to navigate in her push to get her community and everyone in New Mexico exposed to radiation the recognition and compensation she says they deserve.
Tina, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Russ, and I appreciate the invitation to be able to share with you about the New Mexico Downwinders.
Before we get started about the pending federal legislation about the Downwinders, take us back to July 1945. What happened to the communities of Tularosa and Mescalero Apache during the Trinity test?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that in 1945, people didn't have access to televisions or radios or telephones, and there was very little communication. So most people have said to me that they were asleep. They were literally knocked out of bed by the blast and experienced a light like no other they'd ever seen before, because the test actually produced more light and more heat than the sun. So you can imagine what that experience was like for them. And people were frightened. They thought it was the end of the world. They gathered together as families, and some told me we prayed the rosary. People wondered what had happened. Obviously, they didn't know what they had experienced, but the most salient point is that the bomb produced massive fallout. that basically went in every direction and became part of the environment forevermore. And so people's lives were forever changed. Their environment and their lives were invaded by the fallout that was produced from the Trinity test.
And what kind of stories did the elders tell you about the Trinity test when they went to go visit? Because they didn't know what had happened, and you could still walk to the site days afterwards to see what went on. What did they tell you?
Oh my gosh, I've had some really amazing stories shared with me about that. I mean, there was a time, like you said, that they allowed people to freely go out there unencumbered. So people went out there and picnicked. They took children on field trips and fed them out there. I've had people tell me, members of my own family, we packed our pockets with Trinitite. We ate lunch out there and then we went home. I have a dear friend in Tularosa who said that her parents and her aunt and uncle went out there. Her aunt was pregnant at the time. And when the baby was born, the dear child was born without eyes. So there was such a lack of concern for human health that they didn't even close the site to visitors. And I understand that into the 50s, there was still unfettered access to the site, a radioactive site. I mean, when you go out there today, there's signs everywhere warning about the dangers. And imagine what the dangers were, you know, in the months and years just after the test. And allowing people to take things out of there. It's against the law now, and there's signs that warn against that today. But imagine back then, people took things. I had another lady contact me that said, my father went out there in the days afterwards, and he salvaged a bunch of steel, and he built a swing set for us, and he brought back what looked like parachute material. And my mom used it to make curtains for our home and christening dresses for the children in our family. And she said everybody's been sick and dying ever since.
The federal government at the time has always maintained that the wind blew the radioactive material away from communities where people were living, where your family grew up. But people would later say, yes, but there were small clouds of fumes that came back. What kind of stories did folks tell you that they went outside and experienced ash on homes and clothes and so forth?
Well, that's the oral histories that have been recorded by us throughout these many years, 16 years that we've been working on this. People have told me those stories over and over, and they're too similar to be, untrue. And so what people say is that they experienced an ash that fell from the sky for days afterwards, which is probably very likely. The government didn't even have people in place for 24 hours monitoring what happened with the fallout. So for example, in the community of Carrizozo, the day of the blast, the Geiger counters went off the charts. That's very well documented. It's the only town that we have true documentation that the government has provided. And the Geiger counters went off the charts, and they called the men who were there physically monitoring the fallout off and said, you have to get out of there, it's dangerous. And so we don't know whatever happened in Tularosa or Socorro or Alamogordo or Ruidoso. But we can rely on people's memories of that day. And people have told me that ash fell from the sky, it got on everything. And people were living very organic lives. They were depending on the rainwater, collection of rainwater for drinking and cooking purposes. They were using the water out of the acequias or the ditch systems. Tularosa has the largest ditch system in New Mexico. And people were relying on that water, and it was now fully contaminated. To say nothing of the fact that we also didn't have grocery stores because no one had refrigeration. We had ice boxes. And so people couldn't keep things refrigerated like we do now, and you couldn't go to a grocery store and buy meat, produce, or dairy. Everything that you ate was produced at your own home by, using your own means. And of course, all of that was now contaminated. It was July when our cisterns would have been filling up with water because it was the monsoon season. And it was the height of the harvest when women would have been canning and drying everything they could get, out of their gardens for the upcoming winter. And so truly, we were maximally exposed to radiation as a result of the type of test at Trinity and the fact that we lived these very organic lifestyles, entirely dependent on the earth, the environment for our well-being.
When you started bringing this to your attention to elected officials, what was the initial reaction that New Mexico folks, residents of the Trinity test, should be included in the Radiation Compensation Act? Because right now they're not. What was the reaction you got from elected officials? Were they engaged, or did they ignore you at first?
So RECA, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, is a 31-year-old program that has paid $2.5 billion in claims to downwinders of the Nevada test site. New Mexico is also downwind of the Nevada test site, very well documented. When they went to Nevada and started the testing, they put monitoring sites all over the West, and there were monitoring sites in New Mexico. Those monitoring sites did show that we received radiation here through the summer of 1962. But the compensation ends at the New Mexico-Arizona border, as if I always say there's a lead curtain there that somehow has offered us protection to the radiation that we were regularly receiving from the Nevada test site. When we were first alerted to this and we started meeting with our elected officials, it was really interesting because there was this sort of almost as if they didn't know or didn't understand that people here had been damaged. But I have asked the question over and over, why were we not included in RECA in 1990 when it was conceived, when it was first enacted as a bill in the United States Congress? And I've had a variety of different answers. No one was looking out for you. Lately I've been saying, but we had 2 senators like all the other states that are included. No one was looking out for you. And now the regular answer we receive is adding you is going to cost too much, which adds incredible insult to injury when you think about the sacrifice and the suffering that the people of New Mexico have been through for 76 years, essentially, for 76 years. And so, we're not interested in hearing excuses any longer. If people decide, elected officials decide to remain complacent, knowing this story now, knowing what we've uncovered, if people decide to remain complacent in that, that makes them complicit in perpetuating a lie, because the government has always controlled the messaging. They said then, and they say now, that the area was remote and uninhabited, but we know that that is not true. We now have a map that actually says, that at 50 miles, for example, there were 14,000 people living, men, women, and children living adjacent to the test site. That is not remote and uninhabited. At 150 miles, there's close to 500,000 people living there at the time. And so, everyone knows the difference between right and wrong, and this is a social justice issue. It's about correcting a mistake. It was maybe not planned to be the mistake that it was, but there was health consequences, and the government did know some things in advance. They knew there would be fallout, and they knew that radiation was dangerous to human health. So the idea that they didn't know people would be harmed is absolutely not true.
Thanks to Russell and Tina Cordova. You can watch that entire 2021 interview and their most recent conversation reacting to the film Oppenheimer on the New Mexico in Focus YouTube page. In his documentary, American Hemp Farmer, Doug Fine films the moment his southern New Mexico farm receives a federal permit to grow and harvest hemp. It was an important moment to the longtime hemp enthusiast. For years, Fine has spread the good word about hemp, that it's a superfood, it provides carbon sequestration, and it can even be used to print physical materials with a 3D printer. The paper's Andy Lyman recently sat down with Doug to discuss his award-winning documentary and how New Mexico is uniquely positioned to benefit hemp farmers.
Doug Fine, thanks for coming and sitting down with me today.
So great to be here with you, Andy.
One of the overarching themes in your film seems to be that hemp can be one of the big answers to combating climate change, thanks to its wide variety of uses, but also that it grows fast and plentiful. So what are some of those uses of the plant, and how can it save humanity from climate change?
First and foremost, hemp's roots are unusually long for an annual. When you harvest a hemp plant, it's unbelievable. You have these like branching out roots, and what they're doing is aerating the soil, and it's really crucial for creating a living space for beneficial microbes. When you have beneficial microbes, you have thriving plants, and then the plants do their job of sequestering carbon. They breathe it the way that we breathe oxygen. So we can quantify it, and I've seen it in the field, and this is in the film. There's a wildfire raging outside one of the hemp fields. It's 100 degrees outside, more than 100 degrees. You go into the hemp field, the air is clear and cooler. You can actually feel the carbon sequestration. So first and foremost, I would say the roots, but also the application that I love growing for my own family's food security is seed. And this hemp seed you can get at any grocery store, and it's a genuine superfood, very high, 30+% protein, and plentiful in beneficial minerals like selenium and magnesium. So in those two ways, food security and carbon sequestration, it's part of a entourage of plants, but it's a crucial plant for humanity's future.
So a lot of the film takes place at your Funky Butte Ranch in southern New Mexico. And then towards the beginning of the film, we see you and your wife get your state hemp license. I could sort of feel the emotion that was happening there. What was riding on that permit to get the permit?
It's really interesting. No other superfood, no other crop that you grow besides cannabis hemp requires allowing the government to come and inspect your crop, issue you a permit for a crop. It's a weird system, and I wish that the legacy of the ridiculous war on cannabis were over so that we wouldn't have to get permits at all. But having said that, New Mexico has, since the moment that New Mexico developed a hemp program about 5 years ago, had one of the best in the nation, within the top couple of hemp programs, very farmer friendly in the way that the inspections were done to make sure that THC levels, the psychoactive levels, are within current hemp definitions. So it is a big moment when you're official and you get your permit. And then there's also this sweat off your brow moment when you pass the THC test in the middle of the season. Then you know you can actually harvest the crop. I'm really big on taking the burden off the farmers. It's all that stuff, I think, would be wonderful if it went away and we just let farmers grow their crops.
Later on in the film, there's another scene where you visit this 3D printing operation where they're using hemp material to make what looks like to be sort of a plastic type material. It might take some viewers some time to wrap their heads around it, but my brain first went to maybe Cheech and Chong are onto something. From the movie Up in Smoke, they're driving around this big truck made out of cannabis. So maybe they saw the future, I don't know. But now we know that it's possible. Why aren't we seeing more widespread production of hemp in that way?
Well, first of all, in case it helps viewers, I rarely travel without the hemp printed goat. There's this 3D printed from U.S. grown hemp, Goodbye Pacific garbage patch, compostable. It can be made in all different kinds of strengths of plastic, so you don't need those petrochemicals. And if we really think about our supply chain as customers, that's what's gonna, I hope, reach critical mass. Even my pants and TMI alert, my underwear today are made from hemp. This renewable and easy to grow crop. So as for why is it not more implemented, it's about, critical mass and chicken and egg. Certain amount of acreage has to be grown in order to have enough feedstock to feed expensive processing machinery. And really just educating customers that, you could go to a box store and buy pesticide-soaked imported cotton, or you could actually go and seek out clothing or food of all kinds, not even just hemp, that's grown by local farmers. If you think about that, you might be paying a little bit more going in, but the flip side of the whole saying pay the farmer now rather than the doctor later is something we really live by. So it's about individual families deciding they're going to work regenerative materials and food into their budget.
You also went and visited George Washington's famous Mount Vernon estate and saw, I believe, the first hemp crop there in centuries, I think is what you mentioned in the film. And it seems to be sort of a big turning point for hemp manufacturing, hemp growth, that it's coming back to this place that was famously, that famously grew hemp there for a long time. What did you learn there in terms of how integral hemp was for our first president?
It was an amazing experience. I feel so lucky that the longtime manager of the estate Dean Norton had read one of my hemp books and invited me just to be part of this harvest, not knowing that I was making a film. And so we got into colonial clothes, harvested with super sharp colonial era scythes. They're really sharp. I still have a scar from harvesting not carefully enough. And the pride and the importance of hemp in his journals to George Washington was undeniable. But as far as what I learned most, it was yet another use of hemp that I didn't know about. People think of some of the more common uses for hemp, even that we've discussed, food, clothing. George Washington made most of his money through his fishing fleet in the Potomac River, and his nets were made from hemp. The boats that were used in the fishing were caulked with hemp seed oil. So hemp was vital for him concretely in making a living. So this was the first, we documented in the film, the first hemp harvest at Mount Vernon since 1799. And it was awesome experience to be part of.
I've been covering sort of cannabis legalization here for a number of years now. What I'm hearing these days are some rumblings of how is New Mexico going to put itself on the map when interstate commerce becomes a thing. I feel like CBD and hemp is already there, considering it's on a different legal standard. And I feel like CBD and hemp products are sort of ubiquitous in stores these days, but not much of it is local. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if that's the case, how can local hemp farmers sort of get a leg up, get their products onto shelves so that when we go to the local boutique store here in Albuquerque, we know that it's grown locally?
That's a great question. The first model that comes to mind is Hatch Green Chili. Has done such a remarkable job, deservedly. It's awesome. We love it. Marketing itself worldwide. And that is about local farmers growing in a place. And so using that model, New Mexico, as someone who also has written about and covered in this film, hemp and cannabis all over the country and all over the world, what we have in New Mexico is the land of enchantment, the local grown kind of real genuine spirit, people that are super friendly. We have red or green sauce in our New Mexico restaurants. Taking that mentality in, I think, is a competitive advantage for our cannabis and hemp farmers versus what are known as MSOs, multi-state operations. And it's fine. I'm grateful for cannabis hemp returning in all its forms. But just as I shop at a farmer's market or food co-op rather than a box store for my vegetables, that's how I hope visitors to the state and even folks within the state who are shopping for hemp cannabis will seek out those locally produced, ideally organic, but certainly regenerative mode local hemp products. I want to shout out High Lonesome Farms out of Silver City. They do a great job with hemp and cannabis products. And, since I live in southern New Mexico, up here in northern New Mexico, I'm sure there's a ton of farm to product. So I'd urge folks to just look for, as you say, those farm to shelf, farm to product hemp and cannabis products, even when there is competition, and look for more than just that immediate price tag. Look for locally produced, just like you would for Hatch chilies. You wouldn't want your green chilies coming from somewhere else.
So sometimes we might have to pay a little bit more to be sort of socially conscious and supporting our local farms, right?
Maybe so too. But I mean, if you're taking the time to take your family to a farmer's market for hemp or other products, maybe you're not even paying that much more. If you're just investing, we make it our tourism to go and shop for food in a place, local food in a place.
As I was watching this, it occurred to me that you seem to be having a lot of fun doing this, not just making the film, but growing hemp and supporting your family through this. You're doing cartwheels in the film, you're dancing, you're wearing costumes, you play the saxophone. I think you call it tooting your saxophone for your plants. How easy is it for, say, the average New Mexico PBS correspondent to just ditch everything and go start a hemp farm?
I would say that you're right, that fun is definitely part of the brand. My family and I love our life. Being outside with pollinators is the most fun you can have outside the bedroom, and focusing on family to begin with. We homeschool our kids. I advise it to folks as a way to live a really happy life. But as for what anybody can do, every acre of regeneratively cultivated hemp sequesters tons of carbon. So if you have a rooftop space in a city or just a patch that you can drip, irrigate, and plant hemp on. Of course, at this stage, you have to get a permit even for a home subsistence crop, but hopefully, follow the regulations, but hopefully those type of things are going away. Everybody can actually play a concrete role. And your own food will be healthier. That's this coming back to the family, coming back to home. I'm so glad you asked that question, because in the end, I feel when we have these jars and jars of hemp seed that we can put into our yogurt that comes from our goats, cutting the carbon miles out of it, we're not fully food independent by any stretch, and we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back a lot. But it's a remarkable feeling, and it's whether it's psychological or really truly nutritive, we feel like we're getting more nutrient dense food when you love the plants and you're talking to them, or in my case, playing bad saxophone at them. I think it does actually result in happier plants, because I don't consider myself to have a extremely green thumb, and yet these plants keep coming up and giving my family food. So I was really grateful at the Santa Fe Film Festival. The American Hemp Farmer film premiered and won this award, and I got called onto the stage and got this Nambe Award, and I had to say something, and I thanked, besides obvious family and casting, the microbes and the sun and the plants, because they're providing life for my family.
You reference yourself as a midwife, I think, in there, right? Just to sort of facilitate it. So what's next for the film, and where can people find it right now?
It's a fun journey for me to have now take this stage after print journalism, radio journalism, and book authoring, to move into film and have this immediate, with the first premiere, have a little bit of justification. I'm so grateful, always will be grateful for Santa Fe Film Festival for accepting this film, because you start to get return calls. So now I'm in this fun honeymoon phase of a learning process of how you market a film. Like everything else, television and film markets are evolving extremely rapidly. So our hope is that there's PBS watchers at Netflix who want to pick up this film. We really want to get this message of having fun while sequestering carbon and living a regenerative life out, because I do think, you don't want to be too grandiose. It's a potential hope for humanity. If everybody is thinking about local food and destructive industrial pipeline products, then maybe actually humanity has a chance of thriving post-petroleum.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you again so much for coming in and talking with me today.
Great questions. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by the viewers like you.